Hey everybody, welcome back to the arena. I'm MD, joined by Covey with once again another special guest that we just can't wait to get into here. But before any dialogue picks up, I want to first show love and appreciation to those who continue to follow us and be a part of this journey with us.
What's up, guys? It's Matt again. We've got another super cool guest, and I got to shout out Triva for making the introduction to Jon Sanchez, who we have here, and getting to know Jon very briefly. He's a very impressive guy with a very impressive background. Feel very fortunate to have met Jon. So without further ado, this is Jon Sanchez. I'll let him give a background of kind of who he is, where and how he's got to where he is today. So Jon, why don't you take it away?
Awesome. Thanks, MD Covey. Honored to be on here with you guys. Looking good, and an honor just to spend a little bit of time with you, kind of share my story in the hopes that it will help others. I think that's really important to me, and I hope that this can help possibly inspire others, or teach or learn a few things. And I'm just honored to be a part of it. And thanks to Triva for linking us up. I think Matt found us in similar worlds that we've kind of gotten through. So where I am right now in life is Cincinnati, Ohio. I live on a farm in Lebanon, Ohio with my wife, best friend for 23 years, coming up on 24 years of marriage this summer. 3 kids, one 19, headed to the Naval Academy, one 17 in high school. He's a wrestler, rugby player, and I got a daughter extremely proud of who's also a wrestler and a track star. And she is 15 as a freshman in high school as well. So that's where I am. Long road to here has been super fun. To go back to college, I grew up in Ohio. I was lucky enough to be accepted to the United States Naval Academy. I attended there. I struggled there academically. Got through it, though, and got to ultimately what I wanted was to get a position to try out for the SEAL teams. We call it a billet. So I got a SEAL team billet, and I was able to try out for the SEAL teams, and I was able to actually go through that tryout. I made it through. It was a 6-month grueling course that they put on, and was lucky enough then to go into the SEAL teams and serve our country as a SEAL. I got to serve as an officer. I got to go and serve in places you'd never want to go on vacation, and it was really, really unique and wild experience to have. Good experience, bad experience, sometimes odd experience with doing all these things around leadership and being a part of a very, really unique elite team, which I really enjoyed, and still stay in touch with all my brothers that I was able to serve with. I enjoyed that. I met the girl of my dreams, and decided it was time for me to get out. I got out after 6 years of serving the SEAL teams, and didn't know what I wanted to do. Happened to randomly end in finance, in a sales role, and I went from being the coolest guy in the room as like a Navy SEAL to like the guy who interrupts your dinner, cold calling. The worst guy in the world, like the guy you never want to call you or see. And learned how to sell, which is a absolutely foundational part, I think, of business acumen for me, to learn to sell from going from a cold call to winning trust and getting around folks to getting into their homes and having them trust me enough to be able to manage all their money. And that's what I did. I was a financial advisor for about 12 years. Had a great experience there, and moved into banking because I fell in love with serving others, and banking had a little bit broader view or broader reach in doing that. But eventually, after all that, I think we end up going to True North. And True North for me was just taking all of that experience, the leadership experience, the elite team experience, the sales experience, the corporate management experience, and bundling it all up together in 2016 and say, I'm going to try to hang my own shingle and do my own thing. And that's what I'm doing now. I run Team Performance Institute. We are a small business that specializes in leadership development and training of other companies. through various different aspects: executive coaching, keynote speaking, workshops, training, virtual training. We have pretty much everything. I won't go into a long commercial for you, Matt, but that was there's the 5-minute. If the elevator had to be about 400 floors for me to give you your 5-minute elevator speech on that one.
No, it's a very impressive background, and I'm glad you shared kind of your individual steps in your journey to where you are today, because I think let's start from scratch, right? Which is, your journey leading up to the Navy. Where did the inspiration come from to kind of serve our country, and then specifically kind of join, the SEAL program?
It's great start, great question. I grew up, like I said, in northern Ohio. My grandfather was a submariner in World War II, and he was in Michigan. He used to come down. We used to go fishing all the time. He was a great mentor to me. My grandfather, Alex Kozlowski, by the way. So looking at me, you're probably thinking I'm truly Polish. With a name like Sanchez, I look Hispanic. I'm actually Filipino and Polish. But Alex mentored me at a young age. I wouldn't say mentored. He spent just a lot of time with me, and I think he saw in me a higher call to serve. And in that calling, I got to, look at and think about different options. My other grandfather on the Filipino side was a fighting Filipino. He was one of the Filipinos fighting in World War II as well, and for the Philippines alongside the American troops over there. And my father was born during the World War II in Japanese invasion of the Filipino Islands. So come from this kind of cool, like really wild. My father was a refugee at one point, and then became an immigrant here, and had 6 kids, 3 of which went into the military. My oldest brother went into the Naval Academy as well, and I got to see the Naval Academy as he checked in there, and I thought this is the place I want to be, which is pretty cool. And I got to go there. Like I said, it was a bit of a process to get in there, but through that, I figured out, yeah, man, this is what I wanted to do. That's how it started for me.
So, when joining the Navy SEALs, I want to talk to you about, or I want to get your thoughts on the BUDS training, just the process it takes to become one. For our listeners that don't know, walk us through like what that looks like, and what I'd love to then go into is the mental fortitude that you have to then build up over time, and maybe just give us some background on what it takes to become a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, sure. The program itself starts off with 6 months of training called Basic Underwater Demolition School, or training. We obviously that acronym is BUDS. BUDS is one of the most, I would say it is probably the most grueling, the most intense, and the hardest warfare school in the world. Every class starts and loses roughly 80 to 90% of the class from where they start. And to get there, you also have to be qualified. So it's not like they're just taking anybody off the street. You have to qualify. You have to go through some initial training in the Navy. If you want to be an officer and go through, there's a lot more that involves. You have to go to either an academy and get commissioned as an officer, or you go through an OCS program or some type of ROTC program and become an officer and then come in. So very few positions available for officers. Also relatively few positions available to enlisted as they go through. All the officers and enlisted go through the training together. That is unique. That is pretty cool. In other forces, they do it differently. But we like to have everybody go through, everybody have the same experience. They hold officers to a higher standard when they're going through training, and they should. I think leaders should be held to a higher standard as they go through training. We have to get higher scores on our academic tests, and they're typically the ones that they're going to get yelled at when things are going wrong with the class. And every day things are going wrong with the class. That's all part of the game. That's all part of the show. My class started with 140 guys. We marched into graduation 6 months later with just 14 of us, of those original 140. it was, pretty wild to watch those 140 start, and everybody was all dialed in. They swore that they would never quit, that this was going to be for them, and this is going to be it. And over the course of just the first few weeks, you'll lose a lot of guys.
So did you ever have doubts, when you're watching, use the phrase dropping like flies, as the class starts to drop like flies, and at that magnitude, does that ever create doubt or like a peer pressure of, hey, I could be taking a much easier route in life right now? And walk us through just building up that mental fortitude and how you had to really continually train your mind to keep with the process of it.
Yeah. I think what you said, MD, is probably the best, is you built that up. And you build that up. I built that up beforehand. I really built that up going in. And like many others who said, I'm not going to quit, I think you can stand in front of that gauntlet and say, I'm not going to quit going into this gauntlet. But if you haven't done the work, then you don't know whether you're going to quit or not. And there's certainly going to be doubts depending on how bad the gauntlet gets. But as we were heading towards the end of training, we were out in the third phase of training, and we're out on this island, and it's just miserable. And it's been, there's only a couple weeks left of training. And one of the instructors came to me and he said, hey, Mr. Sanchez, what do you think it would take to get somebody to quit today? Which was always like uh-oh. Like, what are you looking for here, instructor? Like, oh no, that's a really bad question. Hey, William, what would it take to get somebody to quit? And I didn't have to think much about it because I looked at the guys who were still standing after 5.5 months, and I just responded honestly. I said, I don't know. I think you'd have to kill him. And he said, that's good. Now we're down to the core. Like, that's kind of what it is. But in order to prepare, I think your question around mental toughness and all that, I think life is a collection of experiences that can make you tougher, can make you weaker, can change you in some way. And how you go through those experiences is very important. How you view those experiences is very important. If you believe there's purpose to your pain, if you believe that there's purpose to hardship, you ultimately become mentally tougher as you go through these things. If you go through something really tough and you fail horribly, and I have many, many times, and you get back up and you say, okay, what did I learn from that? Or what can I avoid next time and not have that happen again? Then you're also getting tougher. I was in a pretty unique and cool, if you look back at how I started and where I got, where I came from. I started, it goes all the way back to like 4 years old. I was a hyperactive little monkey kid. I was crazy. I had older siblings. My parents threw me in the water. I said, this kid's, he's crazy. Let's get him on the swim team. Because nothing cures toddler craziness more than water. So, boom, they threw me in the water, and I was competitively swimming at a very young age, and I got very comfortable in the water, and that physical activity was very good for me, and I froze my butt off, as a young kid with no body fat, and it was funny now, but I look back and think there was a lot of mental toughness preparation going on there at a very, very young age. I learned how to visualize through athletics, how to see myself compete, see myself to victory. At a very young age, 10, 12 years old, I was taught these cool visualization drills by my swim coach, and they ended up really serving me well later. I got surrounded by some really, really incredible people as I went through my teenage years and into my time at the academy. And because I was always probably going towards something a little tougher out of the academy, meaning like I really considered joining the Marine Corps or into the SEAL teams. I thought, man, I got to get around some really tough guys. And I was around some really tough and fun guys. And we all had this mentality. We're always challenging each other, pushing each other. And it created that, that sense of understanding of myself maybe a little bit more. I played water polo at the Naval Academy, and the water polo coach was very, very tough. So all these things, all these experiences, they all add up. Can you go into that training without doubt? Can you go in that training without fear? No way. I mean, I'll say, and you asked the question, did you ever have self-doubt when people are dropping like flies? I did not. I walked into that training wholly knowing I'm going to finish this. There's no doubt in my mind. I am going to finish this training. It wasn't one of those like, I'm going to finish this in the back of my head, like, gosh, I'm trying to talk myself through it. I was like, oh yeah, you're pretty much going to have to kill me. And I almost died a couple times in training.
So, number one, I was a swimmer, and hopefully my fellow basketball player friend over here has a newfound respect for the water sport athletes. But I had no idea I had already accomplished step one to becoming a SEAL. But no, kidding. But
there you go.
With the other 13 guys, I think you said 14 including you, but with the other 13 guys, it seems like you credit a lot of your upbringing as a form of preparation for what ultimately helped you complete through the training. Did you notice a similar trend? Like, were you able to see eye to eye with the other 13 guys and know, hey, they had a background to them that also helped prepare them? Was that in some ways the common denominator?
Yeah, that's great. I think that one of the biggest, the common denominator among, I'd say, the 14 guys that made it through was they had a really strong sense of purpose of who they were and why they were there. You could line out 140 of us up on day one and try to do a test physically and see who was going to make it. We were all physically qualified. We're all physically capable, I believe, to make it through. And then you could look at 140 guys and go, well, that dude has got tats from his toes to his head, or that dude's an MMA fighter, or that dude's a professional athlete, or that dude was a professional football player. That guy's got 2 black belts, all, by the way, true, and all in my class. There's no way I would have been able to. Actually, it's funny. I was kind of like, oh, that guy's going to make it. That's no way that guy's going to make it. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
Right. So what was, you said everyone's got a purpose, or that was kind of the common denominator. Like, what was your purpose?
That sense of purpose for myself was, one, that this is something bigger than me, and I was joining, and I could see the other side of it. I want to be a part of something, a team that could have global impact, and I could see over the horizon. I could see, and again, I had an older brother that not only went to the Naval Academy but also went to the SEAL teams, so I knew what the other side was like. That's really important to think about. Like, if you have the ability, and I go back to those visualization drills that I did when I was a young kid, like, if you have the ability to see beyond your current reality, or to visualize and see yourself as what you're coming and what you're going to become, then it's a lot easier to go through. I also had a few anchors too, like I was talking about some of my friends that I went to the academy with. I don't think I'd ever be able to look them in the eyes and tell them I quit. And if things got really tough, I thought if things ever got really tough, I would think about that person and realize I couldn't quit. I don't know if this is unusual or not, but I never considered quitting. There was not one day and not one moment, even in the hardest week, which is called Hell Week, where I thought, nah, this isn't for me. I honestly would have rather died. I would have rather been pulled out of training. Man, what a great way to go that would be. As I get older now, I'm like, I'm going to the back half. I'm going to the back 9 of life, guys, and I'm like, man, well, that'd be a great way to go. No, I mean, it's I never considered it. I don't know if that's normal or not. I think the crew and the guys that I hang with, or the guys that are in the teams with me, probably would say the same thing, that quitting was never an option for them. Every day was a grind, and every day was a really hard suck fest. But I just felt like that's all I can do is one day at a time.
What about the pressure to fail? Like, you already determined in your mind, I'm never going to consider quitting, but did the idea of the possibility of failure ever creep in? And, behind a purpose perhaps was a healthy pressure to not fail. Was that something that you had felt? And, how did you take that pressure and leverage it maybe as a momentum?
Yeah, this is good. And this kind of goes into something that we at Team Performance Institute we like to teach. But SEAL team training, the first 6 months is a common misnomer. There's no training in the training. It's all about failure. They're going to watch you. They're going to make you fail every single day. If you're good at something, that's not something that you're going to be doing that day. They're going to find ways to make you fail. Physically, mentally, there's all kinds of testing that they can do. It's not that hard to make, even swimmers fail. I mean, basketball players, it's pretty easy. But,
it sounded like a little bit of a shot, but that's okay.
No, I'm just kidding with you, man. I'm just kidding with you, buddy. We got to have our fun. But, failure is a huge part of training. They want to see how you handle failure. That's just it. Nobody skates through training without failing anything. I absolutely have a fear of failure, and that's great. That's natural. Most of us do. Any first grader walking into class the first day is going to have a fear of failure, right? The question is, how do you let it serve you? Do you let that fear dominate you, or do you take charge of that fear? SEALs aren't supermen. We're not, we're not impervious to pain or fear, or don't get scared. In fact, we do things that are so inherently dangerous that unfortunately, guys die every year doing them just in training. So it's not that we're not afraid of it; it's that we're able to handle it a little bit better.
And how important is it, because I think it's a really good point and topic, like how important is it for people to allow themselves to put them in a place where they can fail? Because I speak from myself personally, and it's like it's so easy to get comfortable with your situation, wherever it is in life, and not take risks. And over the last few months, I've been able to put myself out there a little bit more and take chances where there is a chance to fail, and I have failed. Like, how important is it to even put yourself in a position to failure in terms of growth and development?
100% important. Everybody always answers this. Everybody's saying this 100%, 100%. I'm starting to give accurate percentages. I'd say 114%, man. If you're not failing, you're not growing. Let's think about that for a second. Great book by Carol Dweck, written called Mindset. And in there, she coins the phrase growth mindset, which is also a huge part. And growth mindset, the idea between a growth mindset is looking at challenges, looking at huge things in front of you, not as opportunities to pass or fail, but as opportunities to improve. So if I gave you, a job, and I was your new boss, to say, hey, I want you to go do this, most people would look at that and go, okay, this is my boss, my new boss, giving me a new opportunity, a new challenge or something hard. And if I do this well, I'm a good employee. And if I screw it up, I'm screwed. And so I'm going to be a little bit afraid of this task or whatever I'm given. Somebody with a growth mindset says, oh, thanks, boss. This is a great opportunity for me to grow. This is a great opportunity for me to learn something new. And I see this as a project or something we can work on together, or I got this, and I'll do the very best I can, but you're going to learn so much. The growth mindset really speaks to this concept called neuroplasticity, which is the ability of your brain to literally rewire itself by thinking differently time and time again. We have these behavioral patterns that burn a pathway over and over and over again. That's why I believe in positive thinking and positive self-talk. If you constantly tell yourself, whatever it may be, oh, I suck at that, or I'm no good at math, or I'm not good at testing, or I can't shoot a basketball, or I'll never be a good swimmer. Well, guess what's happening? You're burning those pathways right into your brain. But if you start to look at it differently, that, oh my gosh, I get to throw a basketball today, and I'm going to learn. This is going to be fun. I'm going to figure out how to do this. And Matt knows all about this, so he's going to train me, and this is going to be good. And I see it as a challenge. Oh, I missed. I don't care. Let's go again. let's go again. Take that into everything in life. It's life changing. And we work with a lot of businesses here. So a lot of folks we get to work with are extremely high-end executives. They got there because they're overachievers, because they were very focused, probably went to a pretty solid college or university. And in that, you'll find that you think that these guys, these great men and women, have it all completely dialed in, but there is still this kind of fear that, oh my gosh, what if I can't get to the next level? Or I'm not even good enough to be at this level. Imposter syndrome, we all have it, by the way. I have it. I shouldn't even be in this room. How the heck did I get on a podcast today? This is funny, right? But in reality, hey, we're all human. We're all afraid of failure. It's how we look at failure, how we grow from failure that really makes us better, who we are. You're going to find who you are in failure. You're going to find a lot more about yourself. Look back at your life. I challenge each of you. If you look back at your life and think the biggest failure you had, you wouldn't want that on anybody. You wouldn't wish that upon any of your deepest enemies. And then you realize that in that, I probably learned something great. From that came something great. From that came another relationship. From those depths came more understanding of myself, and maybe saved me from something even worse, or got me to the ultimate, which is a better relationship with myself and hopefully with others.
No, it's a great point, because again, to answer your question, while you may not want to go through it again, it's important to suffer, because that's where you really learn about yourself. I've said it on this show before, and I think what I also like about what you said is that idea of neuroplasticity, because it's hard, but it's so easy once you do it once you flip that mindset, and you focus on the positives, on looking at things from a more optimistic view, on the fact that hey, I am capable of this. I mean, that's why people have, the affirmations. People think it's so silly that are kind of on the other side, right? That everything is the glass half empty, that are kind of struggling to maybe stagnant in life. But affirmations there, all that stuff is there for a reason. And once your brain kind of starts to flip, you can almost, I speak from Pert, I'm sure you can as well, but your brain really starts to rewire itself, and you can kind of feel it. And once you're able to do that, it's it's kind of a snowball effect, right? You start doing things, you start taking action, you build confidence, and then the rest is history. So I love what you said there.
That's right. That's exactly
right. I think it's really telling to think about your class of 140. Every single person was physically qualified. That tells you right there just the power of mindset and how it can create a 90+% failure rate, and just the power of being able to control your mindset to really think about failure as a positive, to embrace it, to not be as afraid of it, but more so to welcome it as you enter each day as an opportunity to grow and improve. And it's just as simple as it's simple, maybe not easy, but it's as simple as just rewiring to think about failure in a whole different light can make a pretty grand difference, just in the SEAL example.
Yep.
So John, you serve for 6 years, and you decide, I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. You go into banking. Talk through that transition. Some of the challenges maybe, as well as some of the things, some of these skills, which I'm sure there were many that you developed during your time, serving, that have now you've been able to apply to, other parts of, call it, more everyday life.
Yeah, you want to talk about failure? Watch me go into the banking world for a minute. No, it's great. It's a great transition, and to keep things on theme. My power, or my sense of purpose, was my power, right? So it what pulled me in and helped me get through the SEAL teams. That same sense of purpose was what pulled me out of the SEAL teams. Actually, my sense of purpose is really to serve others. My sense of purpose to help others get to their next level in life. And when I was 18 years old, that meant going in and serving our country and doing something really fun and unique and hard. And at 26, 27, it meant I'm going to serve my family now. I'm going to be the best husband I can be. I'm going to try to be the best father I can be. That's a whole new challenge. I didn't see myself staying in the teams. Because of that, I really felt like it is time now to move on to the next chapter. My wife, at the time I met her, was a medical student, and by the time we got married, she was a physician. And her work schedule and my schedule and the teams, it's probably not a good equation for a new marriage starting out. Could have made it. I think we would have made it, but I don't think it would be in the best equation for either of us. And so my decision to get out was drawn by that sense of purpose. Like, let's go and let's try a new challenge and let's get into financial sales. Good luck with that one, kid. I mean, literally, they gave me a phone book and like, go get them. And I was banging out phone calls and I hated it. It was the worst thing you could possibly imagine. And I just was not good at it at all. I had a really hard time learning the skill of selling, which is a really unique, tough, and growth mindset like skill. It's, you have to have very you have to put your ego aside or just leave it at home when it comes to getting denied and rejected 99 to 100 times a day for one yes. And that was really hard. So here's somebody, when I was going through this, here's somebody who had done something pretty fun, done something pretty big, was kind of, I don't know, admired for what I had accomplished there, walked away from it, and all of a sudden I am low side of the totem pole again. And now I got to work myself back into something. So it was just riddled with failure. After 6 months of doing it, I had very few clients. I had one client. I think it was my parents, and I don't think they gave me all their money. I don't think they trusted me well enough to do it just quite yet. And I needed help. So I did what I tell others to do now is go find help. When you need help, go find it. When you need a friend, it's too late to make one. So make friends, surround yourself with the best people in the world. But I was sitting in my office and failing and working and just, trying to grind out what they taught me to do in regular training in the Solomon Smith Barney training that I took. They sent me up to, Connecticut and then to New York to do all this cold call training. And I was just like mechanically following it. But from down the hall from in my office, which was a really nice office in Baltimore, we were up in those really nice skyscraper buildings and really fancy desks, and everything was really way cleaner than you'd see in any military base. I thought I've made it to the big time. But I hear this cackling and this laughing and all this crazy, like this just really wonderful world happening down the hall from me. And there's this office down there, and it's this woman who had a fantastic book of business. She was extremely successful. She weighed about 100 pounds soaking wet. She was, 5 foot something, and really smart. And I was just thinking, how is she having so much fun? Like, how is this? Like, because I'm down here dying. How is this okay? And how is she like laughing and talking to her clients? The relationships that she had with her clients were genuine and sincere. And I thought, are you kidding me? And I walked into her office. Her name is Debbie Cameron. Big shout out to Debbie Cameron, who is my mentor in the business. And I sat down, and she had a couch. She was good enough. She had a couch in her office. I sat down in her couch, and I said, "You've been chosen as my mentor." And she looked at me. She says, "I didn't know we had a mentoring program here. What the hell are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, we don't. I'm just failing, and I need your help." And she took me under her wing, and she took me on appointments. She went to my appointments with me and sat and watched. She took me on appointments with her that I got to watch her work, and immediately I felt like this is unbelievable. Like, this is how it actually works. She was teaching me to be myself. She was teaching me to come into my own authenticity in sales. New skill, right? So no matter how hard or cool or great you think you were from getting through the toughest warfare school in the world, everybody can learn something new. I mean, I was a Naval Academy graduate. I had, all this phenomenal, SEAL team training and world. I graduated high, and all my classes, I crushed that world, and all of a sudden I'm failing miserably in my late 20s. And always something to learn. So she taught me new ways. She taught me how to talk. She taught me how to sell. She taught me how to talk to people. She taught me how to genuinely care about my clients, which ended up, I went from at the 6-month mark not having like any clients to at the 12-month mark I had qualified for what at the time was called blue chip or president circle. It's the great thing that you get, and they flew me to New York and they bought my wife jewelry and they put us up in the plaza, and my wife's looking at me like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I have no idea. Thank Debbie Cameron for all this.
Yeah, there's so much here, and so I'm trying to track like the mental process. So you probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably move away from the Navy SEAL phase of your life feeling somewhat invincible, going back into, maybe real world thinking there's no way I could ever feel more challenged than what I had just gone through. Enter a sales arena, and like you said, lowest of the totem pole, you get to a point where you're going and seeking help. And I think we're probably thinking the same thing, that this was in some ways the catalyst to then giving you the upswing you needed to then once again get to the top of the totem pole, which is President's Club, etc. It's remarkable to think about how just simply changing your arena, you had to go from an invincibility complex to grounding yourself and getting to a point of seeking help. What was that process like? Like how gradually did it feel to go from, okay, I need to go and get help versus, I can't just do this on my own?
Yeah, what a great question, because you're right. I walked into it with not only invincibility, it was arrogance, to be fair, to be honest. I'm like, I got this. Nobody can hurt me, bring it on. I ain't going to quit. I've been through that before. So a couple of those things translated through. One was, I'm not going to quit. When I got into it, I remember looking at the statistics when I was going through the training program at Solomon Smith Barney, and they were like, hey, just so you know, like only, I think it was like, 40% of the people make it through this program. I'm like, whoa, those numbers are awesome compared to where I came from. This is great. It's like I have 4 times higher likelihood of success here. Thank you. I'll use that as a bonus. So I wasn't scared. But I did walk in with a little bit of arrogance, and I was quickly humbled. And numbers don't lie in business. You can't hide when you're in sales. You have to produce numbers. And so as I was going through the program and my sales manager met with me, he looked and he said, and this really, if to break it down, MD, it would come out like really with like one day when I was like, hey, oh my, this might not be working. So what happened was he called me into his office. I was doing my regular sales meeting. He sat me down and says, how's it going? I said, well, not good in terms of numbers, but I've got like a lot of call activity. Here's my call activity. I showed him like all the stuff I was doing. He goes, well, this is all good, but you need to double your call volume. And I was already putting in what I thought was a 40-hour week. And I'm like, double it? Like, that's impossible. And he's like, no, it's not. In fact, that's what the successful people are doing. And I think you're going to be successful, but if you're going to do this or you're not going to do it. And, if you want to be successful, that's what you got to do. So I went home that day. I remember my wife and I picked her up, sitting in our little stick shift Honda Civic. I think it was the only car we had at the time. No, we had a 1972 Eldorado Cadillac. That was like this total side story, but like we didn't have anything, right? So we were like, and we sat outside our little community gym. We sat in the parking lot, and I looked at her and I said, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can double my call. I don't know if it's even possible. Can I do this? And we talked it out, and she said, well, it's kind of like the gym. Let's why don't you go in there and just do a little bit extra tomorrow, and then a little bit extra. Let's start building this up. Let's build up let's chunk it down. Let's build up a tolerance to this. And she was right. And over the next month or so, I boosted my call volume, and then with Debbie's help, got on better appointments than I was going on before. Got used to that rejection and kept going. The question though is so good, because like, how do you go from one arena to the other, right? I think it just all flows into our conversation around growth mindset, right? Where if you're good at something, well, at some point, you might not be good at that anymore. my life up, probably into about 30 years old, my identity was, my physicality was a huge part of my identity. I could do things. I could typically, run, jump, swim. I was in the Navy. I was on a pentathlon team. We won a couple gold medals. First time I ran a marathon. I did it. The first time I ran a marathon, I did it under 3 hours. I just could do things, and that's how I was seen and known in a lot of ways to some of my best friends. But as you get older, as you know, man, your body changes and your life changes. And I had significant back surgery when I was 40. And then the challenge of being able to walk was tough. And the challenge of who am I, really? If not,
that'll really humble you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If not like this physical specimen that used to be able to run marathons super fast, or swim or bike. I loved it. I did it all. I did a lot of really cool physical activity that I enjoyed. But now things change, right? As you grow older, you get another arena to play in. You have to learn how to overcome adversity in different ways. And a good life is riddled with adversity. A good life has tons of adversity, and you want that adversity. You need that stress.
So how do you sell that to people? Because people are naturally inclined to take the easy route, the path that's easiest, if you will, the path that requires less adversity. So how do you sell clients, whether it's related to business or personally, not sell, but how do you get across that point of like, it's important to face adversity and it's important to fail and go through all that? Like, how do you kind of flip that switch for people that might be struggling with it?
Yeah. Our second rule of engagement at Team Performance Institute is surround yourself with really the best people you possibly can, right? So I very rarely walk into the room where people are like, nope, I want to take the easy way out. I think people who are trying to do things with their lives, and I think that's who we should be surrounding ourselves with, are those who understand that things are going to be challenging, and they're more interested in how do they get through challenge than how do they avoid challenge. Now, if you do have that, and people are like, yeah, I pretty much want to avoid all challenges in my life, everybody's had challenges. And if they go back to the times, like I told you guys earlier, we were talking earlier, I said, hey, go back to the points in your life which were the most challenging. Those were the points that ultimately ended up being the most efficacious to your development. So get after it. Go out and challenge yourself. Do something a little bit different. Matt, I don't think I try to sell or push people into areas where they'd be uncomfortable. I think that I just, I try to live a life that is open to failure. I'm pretty open about failing. I took up, here's my latest and greatest biggest challenge in failure. Now this is really fun failure. Golf. I took up the game of golf during COVID when no kids could play sports and my daughter couldn't do her dance and her dance team and all the other sports, and we just started playing golf together. And I'm like, this is super fun. But I approached it with that growth mindset, and now I play with people that I have a real hard time keeping up. And here's the guy who, again, came from all these patterns of success throughout my whole life. This is the next one I have to get over. And it's the most humbling thing in the world to go out with a foursome and be the worst guy every time.
You're getting beat by people that are 65, 70 years old.
80, yeah. Man, 80. And I'm like, come on, but hey, that's hard and that's fun. I know that's a little bit easier failure than what I experienced early in life, like in the SEAL teams or early in sales. But guess what? It's the same thing. And now it's my probably fifth or sixth time trying something new that extremely challenges me. Again, I'm just picking different arenas. But every single one of them has given me new ways to think. Every single one of them has given me ways to kind of conquer new areas that I never thought about or saw. And you know how it works. Like your hobbies aren't ever a waste of time. Your hobbies typically help you think, reset, refocus. You know, for a long time I was into cycling. Got to race criteriums and do things like that. Something I picked up in my 30s. Super fun, extremely challenging, and it was like kindergartners on carbon fiber. Man, we were like flying on these things. But I learned so much, and it helped me see things differently. I can look at the world in a different way. Look at the way that things move in a different way.
So in tracking kind of your purpose on serving others, you did so as like an individual contributor, I'll call it, you know, as a Navy SEAL and then as a cold call salesman. I want to talk about like the executive coaching aspect of it, because now you're a coach and you're coaching a specific type of persona, being other leaders. And, you know, what are some of the most common flaws or pertinent flaws that you're noticing at a leadership level that you have to help coach? Because you think about C-suite or executive leadership teams, you think they're the highest on the totem pole already. What are some of the most pertinent learning curves in that arena?
And also, just really quickly, like touch on that transition from banking to, you know, your now business, because I know you and I have talked offline specifically about that, and I think people probably assume that, oh, it's simple, it's easy, it's, you know, but as we've talked about, it's not. So talk about that transition as well, and then kind of address what MD just asked. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I'll go with your transition first, and then MD going into like some of the things that we typically see in the executive coaching world. After I was a sales guy for Solomon Smith Barney, I joined a bank, and I went into banking. I went into executive management at a bank, so I got to be a team leader, which was a great title for me. I was like, team leader? Hell yeah, let's go. That's perfect. You know, put team back in my title, and I got to work with some really great people. I again walked into corporate leadership. You'd think I'd learned my lesson here, guys, but I walked in again a little arrogant, thinking, well, I've dealt with teams at the highest level. I can do this, and I really feel like I look back now, man, I could have done a lot better there. I didn't realize after 6 months in that world, again, it's like this magic thing. After 6 months, did an engagement survey, and I was getting my butt kicked against, you know, senior other leaders that were my peers that had been in banking clearly a lot longer than I was. I just wasn't connecting with my group or my team. I didn't do as good of a job as I thought I could, or as I arrogantly assumed that I would, because I needed to learn how to be in corporate management. Corporate management is a lot different than military, and I got to learn both sides of that equation. Now, my military training served me very, very well, and there are aspects of military training and military management, I think, that are very pertinent to corporate management, but not wholly. And I don't think you can never put one or the other. I think it's got to be a solid mix. So what I learned to do is, hopefully over time, is mix the two into a place that became my own leadership style. Once I did that for about 4 years, enjoyed it, worked with some really great people, but I was really called, that's a strong word, but I think it was my calling to take all of that corporate leadership and sales and military experience and bundle it up and go into executive coaching, go into keynote speaking, start this company that we have called Team Performance Institute. And that was hard. So, you know, Matt, you and I have talked, I had this calling, but I had a wonderful salary at the bank. I had a wonderful title. I had a corner office. I mean, I was in a position at 38 where most people would retire from. Like this.
Did it have a couch in it?
It did have a couch in it. Yes. Look at me. I'm all grows up, MD. So yeah, I mean, it was like, oh wow, I've made the big time, and then I realized, you know what? I got called to do something I think a little bit bigger than myself again, and I was called to go help others. In banking, I found that I was helping others, which was really cool. I was able to like meet with folks and the folks on my team that I was leading, but I didn't feel like I could authentically really grab and really help them. That's where executive coaching came into play. it came out of the, again, here it goes. It all comes out of failure, guys. This is a big theme here. I was failing on my like one-on-ones with my team, and so I decided I'm going to go look elsewhere. Feel the theme here. I'm going to go find help. I went inside the bank to find help, and there was coaching classes. I went to those classes, and I didn't feel like I got enough out of that. So I said, I'm going to go outside of the bank. I'll pay for it myself. I'm going to go learn how to be a better coach. And so I went to Chicago. I'm in Cincinnati. I drove all the way to Chicago to go to this training. And in that training, I found this is real coaching. This is big time. This is something I could actually do on my own. This is something I could actually charge for. And it wasn't my intention, but I could leave the bank. I could leave, And when I found it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's another tool that I could put in my toolkit that's going to help me. Now, from when I found that to leaving the bank was about a 2-year process of trying to leave a huge safety net. And most people, and this pulls very well back to your question, MD, is where do we see a lot of some themes? Is some people feel stuck in what they are and what they're doing. Some people feel like they can't leave their current position or title or salary because they have responsibilities. And that's true. I mean, I can't take away from the actual responsibilities or the things that we have to do to provide and do the right things by our families and, for those who are depending on us. But if you do try to answer that call, you might be able to, and I was able to find there is a way out and there's a way towards doing what you ultimately want to do and making money while doing it. So that was the transition. It took me a while. It took me a few coaching sessions myself. I had coaches that were helping me through that. MD, going back to your question around like what are some of the common themes we see in executives and in coaching and who we're dealing with. We see it all. We have the opportunity to work with some of the best executives in the world. Ultimately, we do find that the speed of business is so fast that these executives have very little time to sit and think and reflect on the next step. They have to go from one thing to the other and aren't allowing themselves time to slow down. We provide that space for them to slow down, to think. We become thought partners to them. We do assessments with all of our executives that go through the coaching program, and in that we find what their blind spots may be, and we help them identify and work on some of those blind spots. We also think that everybody that goes through our program is whole. The way everybody goes through our program is they're not broken. They're not walking in here for therapy. They're walking in here to become the best versions of themselves, and we're there to help shine a path, shine a light on that path that helps them get to where they're going. A lot of times they will come with, hey, help me with executive presence, or I really want to get out there and be on stage. I have a hard time with, public speaking, or I'm having a hard time with managing my team in certain aspects, conflict management, conflict resolution, working through. It's funny. This one always gets me, but there is a lot of imposter syndrome. Folks that get to these great levels, they were seen as really big up and comers for a long time, and all of a sudden they blossomed into an executive, and they're at an SVP or a C level, and they're going, how did I get here? I'm only in my 40s or 50s, and I'm in charge of way too much. Like the amount of responsibility, but they don't have lack of confidence, but it is a lack of, I'm sorry, not lack of. It's not lack of confidence. It's more a sense of, I feel like the responsibilities on my shoulders are a little bit bigger than my ability to handle them. And in reality, they're not. In reality, they can handle them, and they're able to handle them. And we're there to help, not facilitate, but help kind of show them that that they are ready, that they are in the place that they should be.
Do you think that's healthy? Like to have a certain level of imposter syndrome. I was actually reading a book, and it kind of alluded to that exact point, but it says, like, you know, this idea of imposter syndrome in bits and pieces is almost a catalyst for these people, because they never feel like they are doing enough, so they are always trying to learn. Yeah. They're always trying to kind of fine-tune their craft. Is that kind of something you typically see?
Yeah, again, I think it's how does it serve you when you think of any aspect, right? Think about imposter syndrome, or think about change, or think about, you know, MD, fear of failure. Are those altogether negative? No. Are they altogether positive? No. How they serve you is the most important thing. So if I have imposter syndrome and I can't get to work on time because I'm scared of getting in front of my team, oh, here's the one I call this one. I'm coining this phrase, so I call it pigpen leadership. You remember Pigpen from Peanuts? Are you guys old enough to remember Peanuts? The Peanuts crew, Charlie Brown's crew.
You're dating me just a little bit, John.
Okay, I know you guys are way younger. Now, in Charlie Brown's crew, there was this character named Pigpen, and Pigpen he was so dirty. He always had this cloud around. Everywhere he went, it was like it was like a cloud of smoke or dirt around him. When I think about leaders sometimes who have imposter syndrome, what they do is they surround themselves with all the chaos. I got this meeting, I got that, I got this, I can barely get to your phone call, I got this and that. And there are just so many emails. And so there's just like this constant churn around. So when you're around one of those executives and you look at them, you're like, oh my goodness, look at all of that going on, right? What they're doing is they're just masking their inability to do their job. They're masking, that they're afraid of ultimately themselves and their ability to fail. So they have to put and wear on their sleeves this badge of honor that I'm so busy I can't do this. I have all this going on, and ultimately it doesn't work. So going back to your question, is imposter syndrome is a little bit of imposter syndrome healthy? Absolutely, if it's serving you in the right way. If I see imposter syndrome to go, hey man, I'm in a very unique position personally. I could speak professionally on this. I get the unique and awesome experience and opportunity, but also responsibility to go in front and speak in front of thousands of people. I get to get on stage and deliver a message. Okay, here comes imposter syndrome. Are you ready? First is, you don't belong up there. Who the hell are you compared to anybody else, right? What are you doing up there? You're not all that great of a guy, or you're not that all special. You're not that all smart. All those things. Okay, this is like saboteurs just screaming, right? In a way, that is true. I mean, I don't see myself as a superhuman. I don't see myself as anything other than like somebody who's also trying to figure it out. I've had, as I've shared with you guys over the past hour, a lot of failure in my life, and in that failure, I've found ways to get through it. And maybe that is, the one thing that I've had as a constant. But that I'm not letting that imposter syndrome sit in the front seat and take over the steering wheel. I'm not letting that saboteur take over. I've been given this unique opportunity. I have good things I want to say and I can do. This is part of my purpose. So is it okay to feel a little bit scared? You betcha. I write every speech or do every piece of our training with a skeptic in mind, that they're thinking, let's really, that this isn't going to work. So I build all of our training with a skeptic in mind, and I deliver all of our training to the fans, right? So you're there to give to the fans what they're looking for. Not fans, I don't have fans, but I'm saying you're there to give people who are really engaged with the training, right? But you build that training with a skeptic in mind. And that's what makes it stronger. And once you've built that, again, it goes so much of this threads in MD. I'm thinking about it's that mental toughness piece. Like once you built it, you're ready. You're ready. You go in there and you know that this is going to be good, and you deliver it to the people that are willing to hear it and accept it.
Yeah, John, and to kind of wrap things up before we get into some rapid fire questions for you, it's just been incredible to hear your journey and it's been really interesting to be able to very vividly see how each one served as a stepping stone to the next, challenge or arena for you, from adolescence, being a water sport athlete, training you to go into the, buds and etc. Have you been able to package this all together into a framework or a coaching style or a quote that you say, these are my core values or my core principles. If you just do these things, this will help guide an already set growth mindset, or this will take you to your next level in whatever arena or journey that somebody chooses to embark on?
Great question, MD, and I do like that little throw in that water athletes are better than ball athletes. This is very good.
We can continue to volley that one.
We can stay on that theme. I don't think I can actually put that all into like a core, like a one statement. I think the learning, and I continue to learn so much, like every day. Coming into this business, and I've been doing it now 7 years, and doing it, wholly is how I feed my family. I've learned that I'm a white belt in this world of leadership, and nobody gets it right all the time. Leadership is extremely lonely and hard, and the more people I meet, the more impressed I am of leaders out there. So to put my coaching, my methodology, all that I've learned into one thing, I think it'd be really, really, really hard. I do believe that I'm living my purpose, and in that purpose, it is to help others achieve their next level, help others, serve others to get them to the next place, wherever that may be. It could be a homeless veteran, or it could be a CEO. Some days it's both that I get to work with. And that's what really gives me the juice to keep moving forward every day. It gets me excited. I want to get better at what I do so I can continue to help and serve others. I'm a man of faith, and so I do believe that God's had a big role in this. I had to turn some of my biggest fears over and say, all right, you're in control. And Matt, I was telling you, when I first started this, I said, well, here I go. And if I saved up a little bit of cash, I was like, if I can make it through, this first 6 months, okay. And then if I can make it through the next year, okay. And I kept on saying, like, if this burns down in the next, year, then it was the best year of my life. But I can't, and eventually it turns. I had to take a bit of a leap of faith.
Well, I'll just say, and before we wrap things up, Jon, thank you for coming on. And I think the biggest theme that I gathered is, and it's very impressive, is just your willingness to ask for help and the level of humility that it takes to do that as someone that comes from the background that you have. It's like what I preach on this show is it's okay to ask for help, whether it's with your mental health, whether it's with stepping into something new. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of courage and strength. Like you mentioned, just walking into an office and saying, hey, you're going to be my mentor. Like that takes vulnerability, that takes courage, that takes strength. That's not weakness, right? So I think just your ability to stay humble through everything you've been through and recognize that this world is hard and there's a lot going on and we aren't experts at everything. You mentioned a white belt at this thing called life. Like I think that's why you've been able to get to the places you have been and have the success that you have had is just that humility. So that was kind of when MD asked that question, it was like, well, what I've gathered is this level of humility and willingness to ask for help, because we're not experts and there's always someone smarter than us in whatever field we're in.
Yeah, ain't that the truth, brother? I tell you what. You think you got it all, just look around and you realize that you'll never. That's part of the SEAL teams as well, is like we did everything. We were diving, we're jumping, we're shooting this again, back to the beginning at a young age. You couldn't be the best guy at all those things. There's no way, right? You can't be the best at everything. I like to think about humility in the sense of like, man, if you don't humble yourself, somebody else is going to do it. I'd rather be in that driver's seat, right?
No kidding.
And I don't, again, you build up some scar tissue over time, right? To say, hey, I need help with this, or can you help me with this? The best leaders, the best people out there that I have found are vulnerable. They're open and they're willing to ask for help. It's not only a great characteristic for your own self-development, but it's also very endearing to those who are leading, because they see themselves in you. They see and feel that this guy doesn't have it all together. As leaders, we always want to think we're going to add value, we're strong, we know all the answers. No way, man. That's yesterday's, that's 1940-something leader. You guys, we all have access to all the information now. You guys are way smarter than me in so many other things. I just need to figure out like how to get like a headset for my podcast. That's what I'm looking at right now. You guys got it right. So I mean, we could always learn from each other, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, John, we got 3 rapid fire questions for you.
All right, can I fire questions back? So if we're gonna get in a firefight, I'm in.
No, I did not sign up for a firefight with you, John.
All right, first question.
This is gonna be a fair fight, or you're just gonna shoot at me? Should I just bunker down? What's going on?
All right, here we go. Best piece of advice you've ever been given, or just like a favorite quote?
Okay, best piece of advice ever given. Somebody said to me, you can do anything you want in the entire world. It is going to be twice as hard as you think it is. Father Ebenho, when I was in high school.
That's very well said. Okay. Second question, you can kind of give a little background if you want on why you give the answer you do. But if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, you know, dead or alive, like who would it be and why?
Jesus. Easy. Definitely want to learn about leadership.
There you go. Always looking for help. And lastly, just like hobbies, what do you like to do? It sounded like you're starting to golf now, but what do you like to do with your free time?
Yeah, spend time with my kids is probably the number one thing, although they're now teenagers and they're, they don't want to spend as much time with me as they used to when they were younger, and that's good. That's them growing and moving forward. Current passion is golf. If somebody could teach me how to swing a club, I'd be very, very thankful for that, but I very much enjoy that. We live on a farm, and so we're beekeepers. We have like 30 hives right now. My wife runs the operation. She's brilliant at it. I'm a swarm catcher, so I go out and catch like thousands of bees in my little bee suit, which is super fun. I'm into woodworking. I'm into cycling. I love riding my bike still. I'm going to try to go on about a 500-mile ride with some of my SEAL team buddies this summer. Love everything outdoors. And, just basically trying to keep that balance, that balanced life. But my hobbies luckily at this stage of my life become really fun and also beneficial to my overall life. Like the people that if golf is my passion, then I get to go out and golf with clients and hang out with good friends and build relationships. So that's a bit about me on the outside of what I do from a 9-to-5 job perspective.
All right, well, John, thank you again. Thanks so much for coming on here, for being open, sharing your story. We really appreciate it. We're going to sign off here, but thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me. Honored to be here.
Thanks, John.